Let them miss you. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that often feels counterintuitive in a world that constantly demands more of us, where being busy and always present seems like a badge of honor, the power of stepping away, the courage to let people miss you. We live in a culture where we are taught to show up endlessly, to always be available, to respond immediately, to give, and then give some more. And don't get me wrong, showing up matters. It's how relationships are built. It's how trust is earned. But here's the truth that we often forget. Showing up isn't the same as overextending. Being there doesn't mean being everywhere. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and create space. Space for others to reflect on what you bring into their lives. Space for them to realize your value, not because you keep reminding them, but because they feel it in your absence. Let them miss you. I know that idea can feel uncomfortable, even risky. You might think, what if they don't notice I'm gone? What if they stop caring? But here's the thing, stepping back isn't about manipulating someone else's feelings or testing their loyalty. It's about honoring yourself, your energy, your boundaries, your time. And it's about giving others the gift of appreciating you in a way they can't when you're always there, doing all the work, filling all the silences. When you let people miss you, you're not only giving them a chance to see what they value about you, you're also giving yourself room to recharge, to recalibrate, to show up again as your fullest, most authentic self. But here's the tough part. Letting them miss you requires trust. Trust that your worth isn't tied to how constantly available you are. Trust that the connections you built are strong enough to hold even when you're not there every moment. And most importantly, trust in yourself that you are enough whether you're front and center or taking a step back. And yes, not everyone will miss you. Not everyone will value you the way you deserve. But isn't that clarity a gift in itself? It's better to know who sees you, who values you, who treasures you without you having to hustle for their attention or approval. Let them miss you, because in doing so, you remind them and yourself of what's irreplaceable about you. So today, I invite you to think about where you've been overextending, where you've been overgiving, where you've been afraid to step back. And I want you to ask yourself, what would happen if I let them miss me? What would happen if I trusted my value enough to leave space for someone else to realize it too? Because the truth is, the people who matter, the ones who truly see you, they won't forget you. They won't stop caring. They'll feel your absence and they'll remember your presence all the more. So, step back when you need to, trust yourself, and let them miss you. Recognizing your worth starts with understanding that it isn't tied to how much you do for others or how often you are available to them. In today's world, it can feel like our value is measured by how much we give, how quickly we respond, or how present we are for everyone around us. There is this unspoken pressure to always be on to pick up the phone, to say yes to the plans, to show up, to fix things, to prove over and over again that we are needed. But let's pause for a moment and really think about this. Are you valuable because of what you do, or are you valuable because of who you are? When you tether your sense of self-worth to how much you give, you start running on empty. You stretch yourself too thin, and ironically, what you offer to others begins to lose its authenticity. Your energy becomes fractured, your joy diminished, and your presence, though frequent, lacks the depth and vibrancy it once held. You might not even notice it at first, because being constantly available feels like the right thing to do. It feels like love, like responsibility, like showing up. But the truth is, overextending yourself can slowly chip away at your ability to show up as your best self. When you value yourself, you recognize that your time and energy are finite, precious resources. You become more intentional about how and where you direct them. Valuing yourself means understanding that you do not have to be in all places at all times to be worthy of love, attention, or respect. It means understanding that your presence has weight and meaning, and you don't need to exhaust yourself to prove that. It is about realizing that you are allowed to step back, take a breath, and trust that your worth remains intact. Often this recognition begins with a hard truth. The fear of being forgotten, overlooked, or replaced can keep us tied to habits of overgiving and overdoing. You might think, if I don't respond quickly, they'll think I don't care, or if I don't say yes, they'll stop asking me. But ask yourself this: if your connection with someone is built on the constant reinforcement of your availability, is that connection truly seeing and valuing you for who you are? When you truly value yourself, you stop feeling the need to earn your place in people's lives through endless effort. You start trusting that the people who matter most will value you, whether or not you are constantly in front of them. Valuing yourself also means acknowledging your own needs. It's about giving yourself the permission to step back without feeling guilty or selfish. You are not a bottomless well of energy or attention, and you don't have to be. Taking a break doesn't make you less caring, less committed, or less dependable. In fact, stepping back allows you to recharge and return with a greater sense of clarity and presence. When you value yourself, you recognize that taking care of your own well-being is not just a gift to yourself, it's also a gift to the people around you. It means you can show up in a way that feels genuine and whole rather than drained and depleted. This mindset also shifts how others perceive you. When you value yourself, you set an example for how others should value you too. You teach people how to treat you by the boundaries you set and the energy you project. People start to see that your presence is intentional, not just expected. They begin to respect the fact that when you are there, you are truly there, not as someone stretching themselves too thin, but as someone who knows the weight of their worth and shares it with purpose. Creating space in relationships is one of the most transformative acts you can undertake, even though it may feel counterintuitive at first. We're often conditioned to think that being ever present in people's lives, whether through constant communication, frequent physical presence, or ongoing acts of service, is the way to maintain and strengthen our connections. While consistency is important, there's a subtle but significant truth we often overlook. Relationships also grow and deepen in the space created by absence. When you step back and allow others to experience life without you filling every gap, you give them the opportunity to reflect on what your presence truly means to them. This act of creating space is not about withholding or playing games. It's about trusting that the foundation you've built in your relationships can hold even when you're not constantly there. When you are always available, always showing up, and always doing the work to keep the connection alive, the value of your presence can become something that's quietly assumed rather than consciously appreciated. It's not that people stop caring, but familiarity has a way of dulling awareness. By stepping back, you allow the other person to rediscover what you bring into their life. You create the conditions for them to notice the subtle ways your energy, attention, and care impact them. Think about it this way: absence creates contrast, and contrast makes things stand out. Just as you notice the brilliance of stars more clearly in the darkness of night, your presence can feel more vivid and meaningful when it's framed by moments of absence. When you're always available, your efforts and contributions can become part of the background noise. But when you intentionally step back, you give others the chance to see and feel the difference you make in their lives. Creating space is also an act of self-respect. It acknowledges that your time and energy are not limitless resources to be constantly spent on keeping relationships afloat. You're not abandoning the people you care about, you're giving them the room to participate actively in the connection. You're inviting them to reach out, to notice what they value about you, and to reciprocate in ways that honor the mutuality of the relationship. True connections are not one-sided, they're built on shared effort. And sometimes creating space is what allows the other person to step forward. In the silence that space provides, people have the opportunity to reflect. They might think about the moments they've shared with you, the times you've been there for them, and the qualities that make you unique in their lives. These reflections deepen appreciation, not because you're reminding them of your worth, but because they're realizing it for themselves. And when someone comes to value you on their own terms, without prompting or reminders, that value becomes something real and lasting. On a personal level, creating space also allows you to reconnect with yourself. When you're constantly present for others, it's easy to lose sight of your own needs, desires, and boundaries. Space gives you room to breathe, to check in with yourself, and to ensure that the energy you're giving to others comes from a place of abundance rather than exhaustion. It's in this space that you find clarity about your relationships, what feels balanced, what might need adjustment, and where your energy is most meaningfully spent. Creating space isn't just about letting others miss you, it's about valuing yourself enough to let them. Setting boundaries is one of the most essential and empowering actions you can take to protect your energy, honor your needs, and preserve the quality of your relationships. It is a practice rooted in self-respect and self-awareness, but for many of us, it feels uncomfortable. Society often equates saying yes with being kind, helpful, or accommodating, and saying no with selfishness, coldness, or rejection. This misunderstanding can lead to a lifetime of overextending yourself, stretching your resources too thin, and putting others' wants and needs ahead of your own well-being. Setting boundaries, however, is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation and self-love. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional bandwidth are finite. You cannot give endlessly without replenishment, and when you try to, the results are often resentment, burnout, or feelings of being taken for granted. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, and a key part of that respect is understanding and honoring limits, yours and theirs. When you say yes to everything and everyone, you are inadvertently saying no to yourself. You are depleting the time you could use for rest, growth, creativity, or simply being. Boundaries allow you to strike a balance where giving and receiving happen without sacrificing your own sense of self. Setting boundaries often requires you to unlearn deeply ingrained beliefs about worthiness. Many of us grow up believing that our value is tied to how much we do for others. We think we are only lovable, only worthy if we are constantly available, constantly giving. But this belief is both exhausting and untrue. Your worth is inherent. It is not something that has to be earned by saying yes to every request or meeting every expectation. Boundaries are a way of reinforcing this truth, both to yourself and to those around you. They are a declaration that you deserve respect, not because of what you do for others, but simply because of who you are. The process of setting boundaries requires courage. It means being willing to disappoint people, to say no, and to risk the discomfort that sometimes comes when you prioritize your needs. For people who are used to you always saying yes, your boundaries might feel unfamiliar at first. They might resist, push back, or question why you're suddenly changing. This reaction is not a reflection of your boundaries being wrong. It is a reflection of their adjustment to the new dynamic. Boundaries do not exist to control others' behavior. They exist to communicate what is acceptable and sustainable for you. It's important to remember that setting boundaries is not about shutting people out. It's about letting them in on your truth. When you set clear and compassionate boundaries, you create an environment where honesty and mutual respect can thrive. Instead of guessing at what you're okay with or assuming your availability, others know where you stand. And this clarity can actually strengthen your relationships. People who truly care about you will respect the boundaries you set because they respect you. There is also a profound ripple effect that comes with setting boundaries. When you enforce limits in your life, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example of what it looks like to prioritize self-respect without compromising kindness. You show that it's possible to say no gracefully, to protect your peace without isolating yourself, and to care for others without losing yourself in the process. This modeling can inspire the people around you to reevaluate their own boundaries and create healthier dynamics in their lives as well. Setting boundaries also frees you to be more present and engaged in the commitments you do choose to honor. When you are not weighed down by obligations you never wanted to take on in the first place, you can focus your energy on the things and people that truly matter. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that help you connect with others in ways that are sustainable and authentic. By saying no to what drains you, you make room to say yes to what fulfills you. Most importantly, boundaries are a way of showing yourself the love and care you so willingly give to others. They are a reminder that your needs, feelings, and desires are just as important as anyone else's. They allow you to reclaim your time, energy, and emotional space, creating a life that feels balanced and aligned with your values. Setting boundaries is not about changing who you are. It's about protecting who you are, so that you can continue to show up in your life with intention, authenticity, and strength. Trusting the strength of your connections means believing that the bonds you have built with others are resilient enough to endure even when you are not constantly present. This trust can feel difficult to cultivate, especially in a world where so much emphasis is placed on always being available, always responding, and always proving your commitment to those you care about. But the foundation of any meaningful relationship is not constant proximity or perpetual communication. It is the mutual respect, understanding, and care that have been established over time. Trusting your connections is about stepping back and knowing that those who value you will continue to hold space for you in their lives, even when you are not always visible. It is natural to feel some level of fear when you pull back from being constantly present. Thoughts like, what if they forget about me? Or what if our relationship fades without my effort? Can creep in, creating anxiety and even guilt. But this fear often underestimates the depth and authenticity of your connections. Strong relationships do not rely on relentless maintenance to survive. They thrive on trust, mutuality, and shared understanding. When you trust your connections, you allow the relationship to breathe, grow, and evolve naturally without the pressure of always having to prove your place within it. Trusting your connections also means recognizing that the people who truly care about you don't need constant reminders of your worth. They value you for who you are, not for how often you text, call, or show up. If a relationship requires you to continuously overextend yourself just to keep it alive, it may not be as solid as it seems. Authentic connections are not fragile. They do not crumble the moment you step back to focus on yourself or take time to recharge. Instead, they adapt, adjust, and remain intact because the core of the relationship is built on something stronger than mere proximity. This trust goes both ways. Just as you trust others to hold space for you, you also allow them the freedom to step back when they need to. When you give people the space to focus on their own needs without questioning their loyalty or care, you reinforce a sense of security within the relationship. Trusting your connections isn't just about believing in your worth, it's about believing in theirs too. It's about understanding that relationships are not about keeping score or constantly proving anything. They're about giving and receiving in a way that feels natural and balanced over time. Building and maintaining this kind of trust requires you to lean into vulnerability. It means accepting that you cannot control how others feel or act and choosing to believe that the bonds you've created will hold even when you're not actively reinforcing them. This can be uncomfortable, especially if you are someone who tends to equate effort with love or presence with commitment. But when you trust your connections, you let go of the need to manage or micromanage every aspect of the relationship. You step into a place of confidence where you know that the people who matter will remain, not because you are always there, but because the connection itself is strong and meaningful. Trusting your connections also allows you to let go of unnecessary worry and stress. When you believe in the resilience of your relationships, you free yourself from the constant mental load of trying to keep up or prove your value. You can focus instead on being present when it truly matters, showing up with intention and authenticity rather than out of obligation. This shift in mindset doesn't weaken your relationships, it strengthens them by grounding them in a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Embracing clarity in relationships is one of the most liberating and transformative shifts you can make in how you engage with the people around you. Clarity comes from allowing yourself to step back and observe how others respond to your absence, your boundaries, and your needs. It comes from creating space and trusting that those who truly value you will show up in meaningful ways, while those who don't may naturally fall away. This process can be uncomfortable, even painful at times, but it is also one of the most honest ways to understand the depth and authenticity of the relationships in your life. When you constantly overextend yourself, always being the first to reach out, always making the effort to keep things going, you may not see the full picture of how others value you. In the effort to keep relationships intact, you can inadvertently create a dynamic where your energy and presence are taken for granted. It's not always malicious or intentional on the part of others. It's just human nature to adapt to what is consistently available. However, when you step back, even just a little, you give people the opportunity to evaluate what you truly mean to them. It's in your absence that they notice the quiet void your presence used to fill. Clarity isn't just about seeing how others respond. It's also about understanding yourself. When you allow space in a relationship, you can begin to reflect on how you feel in the connection. Do you feel valued and seen, or do you feel like you're constantly trying to earn your place? Are the efforts in the relationship mutual, or do they feel one-sided? These questions can be difficult to confront, especially if the answers reveal imbalances or unmet needs. However, they are necessary for building relationships that are grounded in mutual respect, appreciation, and care. At its core, clarity is about revealing truth, and the truth doesn't always align with what we hope or expect. Some relationships may grow stronger in the space you create. People may step forward, expressing their appreciation and showing their commitment to maintaining the bond. On the other hand, some relationships may fade not out of malice, but because they were reliant on your constant effort. While this realization can be painful, it's also profoundly freeing. It allows you to let go of the relationships that are not aligned with your energy and make more room for the ones that are. Embracing clarity also teaches you the power of reciprocity. True relationships thrive when both parties invest in them. When you step back, even momentarily, and someone meets you halfway, it's a clear sign of mutual effort and care. However, when the effort is not returned, it's an equally valuable indicator of where you stand in that connection. This clarity gives you the freedom to make decisions that protect your energy and prioritize your well-being without guilt. Clarity also strengthens the relationships that remain. When you understand how much someone values you, it deepens your connection with them. You're no longer giving out of fear of being forgotten or overcompensating to prove your worth. Instead, you're engaging from a place of trust and mutual understanding. The relationship becomes lighter, freer, and more genuine because it is no longer weighed down by unspoken doubts or imbalances. It's important to remember that clarity is not about judgment or punishment. It's not about keeping score or testing people to see how much they care. Instead, it's about giving yourself the permission to stop overfunctioning in relationships and allowing them to unfold naturally. It's about trusting that the right people will recognize and appreciate your value, even when you're not constantly reminding them of it. This doesn't mean there won't be misunderstandings or moments of conflict, but it does mean that the underlying connection will remain strong because it is rooted in authenticity. When you embrace clarity, you also begin to recognize the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift and support you. You start to notice the difference between relationships that drain you and those that energize you. This awareness becomes a guide for how you choose to spend your time and who you choose to invest your energy in. The process of gaining clarity may require moments of solitude and self-reflection, but what emerges from that space is a life filled with connections that truly nourish your spirit and align with your values. Clarity is a gift both to yourself and to those around you. It allows you to engage with others from a place of truth rather than obligation or fear. It empowers you to step back and trust that the relationships meant for you will stand firm, even without constant effort. And in doing so, it helps you build a life filled with authentic connections that reflect your worth and honor your presence. Recharging yourself is an essential practice that allows you to show up fully in your life and relationships. In a world that glorifies constant productivity and unrelenting busyness, the idea of stepping back and prioritizing rest can feel counterintuitive, even selfish. But the truth is, you cannot give your best to others or to yourself when you're running on empty. Taking time to recharge isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or disengaging from the people you care about. It's about ensuring that you have the energy, clarity, and emotional balance to give meaningfully when you do show up. When you don't allow yourself time to recharge, the effects can show up in every area of your life. You may feel irritable, distracted, or overwhelmed. Your patience might wear thin, and even small tasks can feel like monumental burdens. Over time, this can lead to burnout, a state where you feel emotionally, physically, and mentally drained. Burnout doesn't just impact you, it also affects the people around you. It can make your interactions less thoughtful, your presence less authentic, and your contributions less impactful. Recharging is how you prevent this cycle from taking hold. Recharging looks different for everyone, but at its core, it's about intentionally creating moments of rest and restoration. It might mean spending time alone to reconnect with your thoughts and feelings. It could involve engaging in activities that bring you joy or calm, whether that's reading, meditating, exercising, or simply sitting quietly without the pressure to be productive. For some, recharging might mean stepping away from technology and the constant influx of messages, notifications, and demands for your attention. Whatever it looks like for you, the key is to create space where you can replenish your energy without guilt or distraction. Taking time to recharge is also about learning to listen to your body and mind. Often we push ourselves far past our limits because we're not tuned into the signals that tell us we need a break. Maybe you're feeling unusually tired, snapping at loved ones, or struggling to focus. These are not signs of weakness, they're your body's way of telling you it's time to pause. Ignoring these signals doesn't make them go away. It only amplifies them until they can no longer be ignored. Recharging is how you respond to these signals with care and compassion, acknowledging that you deserve the same attention and kindness you so freely give to others. Recharging yourself also requires setting boundaries. It means saying no to things that drain you, even if they feel like obligations. It means protecting your time and creating space for the things that truly nourish your spirit. This might mean turning down invitations, delegating tasks, or stepping back from commitments that no longer align with your values. Setting these boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to putting others' needs ahead of your own. But it's important to remember that recharging yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and taking time to refill it allows you to give more generously and intentionally when the time comes. When you make recharging a priority, you're not just benefiting yourself, you're also benefiting the people around you. You become a better friend, partner, parent, or colleague when you're operating from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Your interactions are more thoughtful, your presence more engaged, and your energy more positive. People can feel the difference when you're showing up because you want to, not because you feel obligated to. Recharging allows you to be intentional about where and how you invest your energy, ensuring that it goes to the things and people that truly matter. Ultimately, recharging is about recognizing your own worth. It's about understanding that you deserve to feel rested, balanced, and whole, not because of what you do for others, but simply because you are human. It's a practice of self-care that reinforces the idea that your well-being is just as important as anyone else's. By taking time to recharge, you honor your own needs and create a foundation from which you can live, love, and contribute more fully. In the end, stepping back is not about abandoning relationships or diminishing your presence, about reclaiming your worth, honoring your boundaries, and allowing the space for authentic connection to flourish. Letting others miss you is an act of trust in the strength of your bonds, in the clarity that space provides, and in the power of reciprocity. By recharging yourself, embracing your needs, and fostering relationships built on mutual respect and understanding, you create a life where your presence is valued, not expected, and your energy is invested in what truly matters. The right people will always meet you where you are, and in their missing, they will come to value you more deeply.